Good evening, good evening. How you guys doing out there? It's Mike and my co-host, brother JJ. Welcome to the Soberheadz podcast. Today we are on step 12. I mean step 5 of the 12 and 12 book. Step 5 of the 12 and 12 book. Um and is we admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrong. What's up, Jay? How you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing good, man. I can't complain. You know what I mean? We always talk about the book, you know what I mean? But I don't think we
Mm-hmm.
ever put the book up so they can see what, you know,
The 12 and 12. There you go, right there, brother.
you know what I
One day
mean?
I saw a photo of Kevin Hart was actually reading a book, like in a photo, that same book. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
that's interesting right there, man. You know what I mean? I just shared it on your page. Um, Admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrong. Yeah, that was the one for me, bro. That was the one that changed my life right there. When I had to do that, it was a humbling experience, man. So as we read about it, I'm definitely gonna reflect on those moments. Like that was a life changing moment for me, man. You know what I mean? And it was so crazy. It was somebody that I just met when I was in Florida. Like that's the
Mm-hmm.
part that was crazy. You know what I mean? Like somebody I just met, which kind of made it easier because I know he
You
did. Yeah, he ain't know me to be able to
yeah.
judge me or nothing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So, all right, we can get started with it. It says all of AA's 12 steps ask us to do contrary to our natural desires. They all deflate our egos. When it comes to ego deflation, few steps are harder to take than step 5. But scarcely any step is necessary scarcely any step is more necessary to long time sobriety and peace of mind than this one. Whew. AA experience has taught that we cannot live alone with our pressing problems and the character defects which cause or aggravate them if we have swept the searchlight of step 4 back and forth over our careers, and it has revealed in stark relief those experiences we rather not remember. If we have come to know how wrong thinking and action have hurt us and others, then the need is to quit living by ourselves with those tormenting ghosts of yesterday gets more urgent than ever. We have to talk to somebody about them. So intense, though, is our fear and reluctance to do this, that many AAs at first try to bypass step 5. We search for an easier way, which usually consists of a general and fairly painless admission that when we were drinking, sometimes bad actors, then for good measure, we add dramatic descriptions of that part of our drinking behavior, which our friends probably know about anyhow. Now, bro, like they definitely right about that. A lot of people that I especially that I was sponsoring, man, they as soon as we get to 4 and they know that fifth coming, man, they don't even do 4 because the one, they don't want to look at themselves, but the next part is actually having to tell me about it. And I try to
Mm-hmm.
make it easier for them by telling them about stuff that I did. You know what I'm saying? I thank God that I just was desperate when it was time for me to do mine because um if I had some time under my belt, if I would have had like a year already, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if I would have dove into it and I would have like been willing to do it. You get what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I would have said already got a year. Like, why would I have to tell somebody everything? But when I
Mm-hmm.
was desperate and my back was against the wall, I was willing to do whatever it took for me to get sober and for me to have a peace of mind, man.
Yeah.
But they say like this joint, a lot of people try to run around it and try to avoid it and try to find an easier, softer way to try to deal with their problems. But you can't. You just gotta face it, man. You know what I mean? You gotta face it, man. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I underlined the deflated our ego. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that power of just, you know, knowing that you got control, and now you're gonna tell me that I gotta, you know, tell somebody about what I did. You know what I mean? So like,
Mm-hmm.
even when I was searching in step 4, you know what I mean, it was just me. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm.
I ain't have to, you know, explain it to anybody. You know what I mean? Or, you know, I step 1 out, you know, gave it to God, and I asked, you know, God. But Now you telling me I got to repeat the steps. So now from an ego standpoint, it's like, you know, here we go again. You know what I'm saying? And then another thing I underlined was how wrong how wrong thinking and actions have hurt us and others. You know what I mean? So like
Mm-hmm.
now you got this positive mindset of like, you know, hey man, I just went through steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. You know what I'm saying? Now, sometimes I'm not going to say people necessarily run away from step 5, but I think the power of the words of telling somebody what you've done, you know what I mean,
Mm.
gets into your thinking, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
if
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about it, then it's a chance that I might, you know, relapse. You know what I mean? Or
Mm.
you know,
Oh.
I'm
Oh, that's
speaking it
deep.
into, you know, speaking into existence. You know what I mean? So
Oh,
like I
that's deep.
said, the
So
open
you
up.
think that's a you think that might be an actual thing, or you think that's Satan just playing on your mind?
I think it could be both. You know what I mean? Like if you're not
Mm.
saved and you don't know, you know, if you don't have a relationship with God, then it's easy for Satan to play on your mind. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then, like I said, we all can look at ourselves in the mirror and be okay with what we've done, you know, to ourselves and to others. But like I said, then when we got to go out and, you know, tell people the natures of our wrongs, that could be intimidating. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Because I was talking to a brother yesterday. I had saw Israelite brother that was in downtown Freehold, and I
mhm,
had heard he used to be down there. So I rolled past and I saw him. So I jumped out and I went and kicked it with him a little bit. And I was telling him about this process, and he was like, "Why do I could just tell God? Why do I
yeah,
need to add somebody else in it?" I
yeah,
was like, "Because in the book of James, it tells you confess your sins one to another so that you'll be
mhm,
saved." Now, when that other person is involved, that's gonna humiliate you. You're gonna be
yeah,
humbled, and that's where God needs you to be at for you to be able to go to work for Him. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Because until then, we still got that pride and ego,
Mhm.
and we need that pride and ego deflated. You know what I mean? And that's the part that that helps change us.
Oh
You
yeah,
know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So you want to pick up and read?
sure. But of the things which really bothers and burns us, we say nothing.
Mm,
Certain distressing or humiliating memories will tell ourselves ought not to be shared with anyone.
mm,
These will remain our secrets, not a soul must ever know. We hope they'll go to the grave with us. Yet, if AA experiences means anything at all, this is not only unwise, but is actual a prolific resolve. Few muddled attitudes have caused us more trouble than holding on, excuse me, holding back on step 5.
mm,
Some people are unable to stay sober at all. Others will relapse periodically until they really clean house. Even
mm,
AA old timers, sober for years, often pay dearly for skimming this step.
mm,
They will tell how they tried to carry the load alone, how much they suffered of irritable anxiety, remorse, and depression, and how unconsciously seeking relief, they would sometimes accuse even their best friends of the very character defects they themselves were trying to conceal. They
mm.
always discover that relief never came by confessing the sins of other excuse me, confessing the sins of other people. Everybody had to confess his own.
Mm. That's deep, bro. That's a lot right there. First, I want to go back to where they talked about in the first thing about um we had the we wanted to take it to our grave because they
Yeah.
was humiliating. And I often used to hear in this real man, we only as sick as our secrets.
Mm-hmm.
So the stuff that you want to tuck in and the stuff that you want to tell that you don't want to tell, that's what keep us sick.
Yeah.
And then they right. I heard brothers that I've been in company with, man, that relapsed and stuff, and they said that, man. They said um that they had years, and then I asked him. One brother I know had like 30 something, man, and I talked to him, and he was like, Bro, I never did a 4 and 5, man. I never did a 4 and 5. I just held on off
Hmm.
of my own will. But they say eventually that joint gonna walk you down.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It's gonna walk you down, and then it says you get irritable, anxious, remorse, and depression, and then you start pointing at your friends
Hmm.
trying to take their inventory because you struggling. You know what I mean? Like, sheesh. And it says all come from skipping his step, man. I
It's
did it
crazy.
twice, man, and I think the Most High I did it both times, man. You know what I'm saying? And we always go through it. You know what I mean? Like, we always go through these steps every year. Next year we're gonna do the big book. You know what I'm saying? So it's like
Hmm.
just being refreshed with this, just remind us
Oh
the
yeah.
about the work that we put in, and it just makes me feel blessed that that I didn't dodge this, bro. That I
Hmm.
that I faced it head on, and he gave me the gift of desperation to face it head on. You know what I mean? What you got on that so far?
Well, I'm gonna get a basketball version of it because like I'm a basketball coach, so I tell people you can go to the gym and you can spend all day in the gym. You know what I'm saying? But if you're not repping the same thing every time you get in the gym, you
Mm.
ain't gonna be able to master it. You know what I'm saying? So like, if I'm working on one dribble pull-ups, then I need to do 1,000 one dribble pull-ups before I go to a step back. You know what I'm saying? So like, you know, I think sometimes we try to get from one point to another without working or doing the work, continuously until we perfect it. You know what I mean? So like,
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes, when we get sober, you get those 30 days, and then 30 days go to 90 days, and as you get the chips for attending the meetings,
Mm-hmm.
you start to feel good. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
But I always said this: once I got my first year trip, coin, uh, it wasn't no 13 month, it wasn't no 14 month, it wasn't no 15 months. You know what I'm saying? Like, they would ask you what you had, but it wasn't like I've received something for having 13 months. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, yeah. You gotta wait till that next year.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So like,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we tend to work towards the goal. You know what I mean? The
Mm-hmm.
goal in becoming sober, if you're using the 12 steps, is completing every single step. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, 100%.
you can't work the program if you say, all right, I'm gonna do steps 1, 2, 3, and then skip 4 and 5 and jump all the way to to continue the program. It just don't work like that.
Mm-hmm. The this practice of admitting one's defects to another person, of course, very ancient. It has been validated in every century, and it characterizes the lives of all spiritual centered and truly religious people. But today, religion is by no means the sole advocate of this saving principle. Psychiatrists and psychologists point out that the deep need every human being has for practical insight and knowledge of his own personality flaws, and for a discussion of them which an understanding and trustworthy person. As far as alcoholics are concerned, AA would go even further. Most of us would declare that without a fearless admission of our defects to another human being, we could not stay sober. Facts. It seems plain that the grace of God would not enter to expel our destructive obsessions until we were willing to do this. That was definitely true in my case, man.
Yeah.
Like, I had to do that for God to come in, for God to send the spirit inside of me, bro. We are what we will likely to receive from step 5. What are we likely to receive from step 5? For one thing, we would get rid of the terrible sense of isolation we always had. Almost without exception, alcoholics are tortured by loneliness. Even before our drinking got bad and people began to cut us off, nearly all of us suffer from feeling that we quite didn't belong. Wow.
Mm.
Either we were shy and dared not draw near others, or we apt to be noisy good fellows, craving attention and companionship, but never getting it, at least to our way of thinking. That there was always the mysterious barrier which could neither surmount nor understand. It was as if we were actors on a stage, suddenly realizing that we did not know a single line of our parts. That's one reason we loved alcohol too well. It did let us act expert exporting rentlessly. But even back is boomeranged us when we were finally struck down and left in terrified loneliness. Man, that this joint is so real, bro. I can remember being like in high school and stuff, and 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 early in college before I really was like drinking, and I would have girlfriends, and I would go to they would have functions at their house and stuff like that, and when I ain't have alcohol, like when I didn't drink, I felt socially awkward. So I
Mm-hmm.
really wouldn't talk to their family and stuff that much. And they would
Mm-hmm.
often ask me, like, you don't like my family? Like, why you wasn't saying nothing to nobody? Or this or that. But I didn't understand that I just felt awkward, like
Yeah.
around different people. But then when I started to drink, then I would be willing to do all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get what I'm saying?
Oh
So
yeah.
they definitely telling the truth about when it talked about that, man, like the like feeling like your emotions be all over the place until you put the alcohol inside your body, man, and then
Mm-hmm.
you start to feel a little more comfortable in different situations, and then it just turned into that became my way of life. And then I knew I had a problem when I felt uncomfortable without the alcohol in my body.
Yeah.
That's when everything changed, man. What you got on that?
I mean, that's you talking about that mysterious barrier that they was talking about. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know, like I was a shy kid in high school. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
What helped me get out of my shell was playing sports. You know what I'm saying? But
Mm-hmm.
outside of that, I thought about when I became an alcoholic. It wasn't like I was a pissy drunk or a disrespectful drunk or a
Mm-hmm.
loud drunk. You know what I'm saying? No, alcohol just gave me that confidence that I didn't have. When I wasn't drinking. You know what I mean? And like I said, that in case turned into different personalities. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
I was somebody else after 3 drinks, and then I turned into somebody else after 5 drinks, and then I turned into somebody else after seven more drinks. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But the crazy part is, no matter what I did, once I stopped drinking, just falling
Mm-hmm.
back into loneliness of,
Mm.
you know what I'm saying? Like,
Wow.
well, if I'm not drinking, then who hanging out with me? You know what I'm saying? So like,
Mm.
one of the first things I really realized when I became sober is the amount of friends that I lost. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
and
Then you
that's like
realize all you had in common with them was drinking.
that's it. You know what I mean? So like,
Facts.
if I
Facts. That's
wasn't
deep.
drinking, then what can we talk about? You know what I'm saying? If I heard a video one time, it said if all I had to offer was friendship, what kind of friend would I be? You know what I'm saying?
Mm. Mm.
And I thought
Wow.
about that. I was like, oh, dang, man, a lot of my friends, all we did was drink. And once I became sober, I ain't hear from none of them. You know what I'm saying? So,
Wow. Facts. 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 It says, when we reached AA for the first time in our lives, we stood amongst people who seemed to understand. The sense of belonging was tremendously exciting. We thought the isolation problem had been solved, but we soon discovered that weren't alone anymore in the social sense. We still suffered many of the old pains and anxious apartness until we had talked with complete candor of our conflicts and had listened to someone else do the same thing. We still didn't belong. Step 5 was the answer, and it was the beginning of the kinship with man and God. Facts, man. Like I remember, like just going in the meeting and just hearing somebody's story that was from it could be a white guy from like living in the living in Pennsylvania that used to
yeah,
party
yeah.
in the woods. But
Hmm.
when he started talking about why he drank and
Yeah,
how he felt when he drank and this and that, I'm like, yo, that's me.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like now, and it's somebody that if I saw on the street, we probably would never have no conversation with each other. We probably would just walk past each other like we don't know each other. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? But when I'm listening to him in there, I'm hearing him like, yo, this me. I remember watching Flight, and that lady took Denzel to that AA meeting, and he was
Hmm.
standing in there, and it was his first time in one, and the guy was telling the story, and he started to identify,
Yeah.
and he was like, I gotta get out of here. He was like, I gotta get out of here. You know what I mean? But and hearing somebody step 5 and doing a step 5, bro, I'm telling
Hmm.
you, bro. When I did my first step 5 with myself, it was explosive. But when I did it, when I sponsored somebody and did one and saw them and saw that light go off in their eye, man, it's
Yeah.
something to see, brother. It's something to see, man. What you got on that?
I mean, it go back to what you said, just going into the meetings and listening to people tell their story, like you will have a lot in common, especially when it comes to the drinking, you know what I mean? Like, but for me, the foundation of being brought up in the church and just knowing that, I trusted in God, when I started hearing how much God was being talked about in the AA meetings, I was just like,
Mm.
it just made me feel at home because, like I said, even though I was the only black person in there, the two things,
You ain't got
the,
to tell me.
the two things that we had in common was we was alcoholics and we gave our lives to God. You know what I mean? Like that was it. You know what I mean? So I could relate to that. And that didn't have no color to me. You know what I mean? So
Go ahead, you can pick up reading.
the vital step was also the means by which we begin getting the feeling that we could be forgiven, no matter what we had thought or done. Often it was while working on this step with our sponsor or spiritual advisor that we first felt truly able to forgive others, no matter how deeply we felt they had wronged us. Our moral inventory had us persuaded persuaded us that all around forgiveness was desirable. But it was only when we resolutely tackled step 5 that we inwardly knew we'd be able to receive forgiveness and give it to. Another
Man.
great
Oh, go ahead. Hold on.
another great
Let me talk on that for a second because that's what helped me do with the post I put up the other day, man.
Yeah,
When I
I
did
was going to
4
talk
and
about
5.
that. So.
Yeah, that right there. Once I saw who I was,
Yeah.
and I had to talk about it, it was over for me. Like, bro, you better not say you can't forgive nobody.
Yeah.
Look at you, man. Like, you know how many
Yeah.
times you stepped on the gas, knowing you was living wild and you still went harder? Like, nah, bro. You deserve to forgive anybody that crossed you, man. You get what I'm saying? Like, nah,
Yeah.
you want the Most High to forgive you. You gotta do this, bro. You know what I mean? You got anything on that?
Well, yeah, man. We and my wife always laugh and joke about the things we do when we get to the doorstep of heaven, and God is weighing in on like, remember you didn't forget that person. We always do the bone. You can't come in until you forget that person. You know what I mean? So, just looking at your post the other day, it really hit. Because I mean, I know the loneliness. I know the frustration. I know the humility that you went through, and like I said, for you to be on here telling someone like somebody who tried to destroy me, I'm sitting here praying for that person. You know what I mean? Like, and I think one of the most humbling things you can tell somebody that has tried to destroy you in the past is that you love them and you praying for them. You know what I'm saying?
100%, brother. 100%.
That forgiveness is definitely, I mean, it got to be genuine. You know what I'm saying? People will know
100%.
when you coming from the heart and when you BSing. You know what I'm saying? So like, if we
Facts.
go back a couple paragraphs, they talk about the actor. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we was alcoholics. We was acting like somebody else all the time. You know what I'm saying? But when you really full with the spirit, people will know when you pretending and when you're not. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, to know your story and to know how much you gave up. You know what I mean? If you don't know what God looks like, then look at Mike Melton. You know what I'm saying? Like that's it. You know what I mean? Until every day.
The Most High, bro.
I said this the other day, man. I told my wife, I said, you know what Mike told me the other day? He said, man, I wake up every morning and I ask the Lord, who can I help today? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, point me in the direction.
Yeah. And the Holy Spirit pointed you in the direction of having that uncomfortable conversation with somebody who tried to destroy your life. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's funny how God works, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. 100%. Another great dividend go ahead. You was reading.
No, you good, because I'm about to blow my nose.
All right. Another great dividend we may expect from confiding our defects to another human being is humility. a word of often misunderstood. To those who made progress in AA, it amounts to a clear recognition of what and who we really are, followed by a sincere attempt to become what we could be. Therefore, our first practical move towards humility must consist of recognizing our deficiencies. No defect can be corrected unless we can clearly see what it is, but we shall have to do more than see. The objective look ourselves we achieved in step 4 was, after all, only a look. All of us saw, for example, that we lacked honesty and tolerance, that we were beset at times by attacks of self pity and delusions of personal grandeur. But while this was a humiliating experience, it didn't necessarily mean that we have yet acquired much actual humility. Though now recognized our defects were still there, something had to be done about them, and soon found that we could not wish or will them away by ourselves. Wow. More
Mm.
realism and therefore more honesty about ourselves are the great gains we make under the influence of step 5. As we took inventory, we began to suspect how much trouble self delusion has been causing us. This had brought a disturbing reflection. If all our lives we had more or less fooled ourselves, how could we now be sure that we weren't still self-deceived? How could we be certain that we had a true catalog of our defects and had really admitted them even to ourselves? Because we still bothered by fear, self-pity, and hurt feelings, it was probable we couldn't appraise ourselves fairly at all. Whew. Too much guilt and remorse might cause us to dramatize or exaggerate our shortcomings. Our anger and hurt pride might be the smokescreen under which we were hiding some of our defects while we blame others for them. Wow. Possibly, too, we were still handicapped by many liabilities, great and small, we never knew we had. Wow, bro. So this breaks down why we got to tell it to somebody else. Because if we
Yeah,
just say, all right, I'm just going to admit to God what I got going on, so much stuff we going to still tuck under.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So much stuff we going to still tuck under. But once we tell it to God and another person, the fact
Hmm.
that we know somebody else know, it's going to shatter all of this.
Yeah.
It's
It's
going to
like getting that
shatter
weight off your
everything.
shoulder, getting that weight
Yeah.
off your shoulders. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's how, like, when you be looking in at some confections like on First 48 and stuff like that, when people do it after they do it, they just like their shoulders just hunch like even though they going to jail a lot of times, they be feeling like it's over with. I don't gotta
Yeah.
carry that no more. You know what I mean? Like it's
Hmm.
deep, man. What you got on that? That was a lot in that joint, bro.
I mean, I underline no defect can be corrected unless we clearly see what it is. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Like, and like you said, sometimes we'll try to hide, our shortcomings and not, even one, because let's be real, we all had to go back and do the steps over and over again because we left something out. You know what I mean? So like,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't make amends with this person, so now I got to call them back up and make amends with them. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
it's it's a lot when you're not truly honest with what's going on. You know what I mean? So, and then
Mm-hmm.
I underlined the anger and the hurt and the
Mm-hmm.
pride might be
Mm-hmm.
the smoke screen. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, I remember I was like, all right, I'm only drinking because X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? And it had a
Mm-hmm.
lot to do with how I was feeling emotionally at the time. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I didn't get this job, I didn't get that promotion, or they didn't give me coach of the year or blah blah blah. You know what I'm saying? So like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if you don't let that all out, like you said, when you're talking to God and you like, Lord, forgive me, forgive me, forgive me, that's you. But like I said, when I talk about getting it off your shoulder, I mean, it's not one shoulder. You got two shoulders. You know what I'm saying? So not only do I have to go to God, I have to go to somebody else as well. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's
Wow.
what I got for that.
Wow.
So
Hence, it is more evident that solitary self appraisal and the admissions of our defects based upon that alone wouldn't be nearly enough. We had to have outside help if we would surely know and admit the truth about ourselves, the help of God and another human being. Only by discussing ourselves, holding back nothing, Only
Mm.
by being willing to take advice and accept direction could we set foot on the road to straight thinking, solid honesty, and genuine humility. That's why, man,
Mm.
I be talking to some people and they be like, yo, how can you be so direct? Like,
Yeah.
why you don't be scared to talk about stuff? I said, once you do this process, you ain't gonna be scared of nothing no more, man.
Yeah, but
The
you
fear,
take it you still take it to another level, man. Your directness is straightforward to the, you know what I mean? Like, yeah,
I don't know, man. I don't know how to go no other way. I be trying to get better at it though, but when I feel like that, I don't be wanting to sugarcoat it and
nah.
make people feel like that I'm trying to deceive them or anything like
Yeah.
that. You know what I'm
Nah,
saying?
how that song say? Walking how you talking, you walking how you talking, man.
Yeah, but that's why it says that we could set foot on the road to straight thinking, solid
Yeah.
honesty, and genuine humility. Like, nah, this is what it is. You get what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Yeah,
I mean,
many
that's
of
why I
us.
go back to
But
that verse: "To whom much is given, much is required." You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
I mean, the
yeah,
sobriety was given. You know what I mean? To keep the sobriety is a lot required. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's not just selfishly
100%.
about me. You know what I mean? It's about me trying to be an example to other people around me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna put a
100%.
gun to your head and tell you you got to stop drinking, but I can show you better than I can tell you. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's it. You know
Facts.
what I mean? Like,
Facts. Yet many of us still hung back. We said we can't. Why can't God, as we understand Him, tell us we are astray? If the Creator gave us lives in the first place, then He must know in every detail where we have since gone wrong. Why don't we? Why don't we make our admissions to God directly? Why do we need to bring anyone else into this? At this stage, the difficulties of trying to deal directly with God by ourselves are twofold. Though we
mm,
may at first be startled to realize that God knows everything about us, we are apt to get used to that quickly. Somehow, being alone with God doesn't seem as embarrassing as facing up to another person until we actually sit down and talk aloud about what we have so long hidden. Our willingness to clean house is still largely theoretical. Wow.
mm.
When we are honest with another person, it confirms that we have been honest with ourselves and God.
True.
Woo! It says when we are honest with another person, it confirms that we have been honest with ourselves with God. And that's what I'm saying. Like when you by yourself, you might be
Hmm.
broken. You probably gonna cry. You probably that. But when it's another person,
Hmm.
whoo, you gonna break down, bro. You gonna be like, yo. And then you know that other person knows, so that's gonna keep the
Yeah.
humility going. Soon as you start getting beside yourself, you're gonna think about, man, that other person know that this ain't even me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then that's gonna remind you that and that Holy Spirit inside you gonna start convicting you, and then you're gonna
Yeah.
be right back where you was at before. You know what I mean? Then it says the second. You got anything on that?
I mean, what did I started? God doesn't seem as embarrassed. Oh, God doesn't seem as embarrassing as facing up to another person, right? So, like you said, I'm telling everything to God, right? But
Mm-hmm.
now I gotta go back and tell my, sponsor, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, wait a
Mm.
second, my sponsor ain't different, ain't no better than God. So for me, it was like easy to say because once I poured into God, why couldn't I be able to tell somebody else what I did? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm.
who who should I be more ashamed to tell what I did to somebody wrong? God, who I already knew I was doing the wrong thing in God's eyes, period. You know what I'm saying? So for me to
Mm-hmm.
go back and admit that to somebody else, to a man or a woman, that was nothing. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah,
I had
yeah.
already disobeyed the Father. You know what I'm saying?
Talk about it. Talk about it.
That's what I have for that, man.
Right. The second difficulty is this: what comes to us alone may be garbled by our own rationalization and wishful thinking. The benefit of talking to another person is that we can get his direct comment and counsel on our situation. And there
Mm-hmm.
can be no doubt in our minds what that advice is. Going at it alone in spiritual matters is dangerous. How many times have we heard well intentioned people claim the guidance of God when it was all too plain that they were sorely mistaken? lacking both practice and humility, they had eluded themselves and were able to justify the most errant nonsense on the ground that it was what God had told them. It is worth noting that people of very high spiritual development almost always insist on checking with friends or spiritual advisors the guidance they feel they have received from God. Surely then, a novice ought not lay up himself open to the chance of making foolish, perhaps tragic blunders in this fashion. While the comment or advice of others may be more no means infallible, it is likely to be far more pacific than a direct guidance we may receive while we are so inexperienced at establishing contact with a power greater than ourselves. So when I'm sitting down, I need that direct response from that other brother, that other spiritual brother, because he gonna let me know, like, nah, yeah, bro. All right, let's get deeper into this, bro. You got resentment towards her. All right, I'm listening. What part did you play?
Yeah.
Now I gotta get deeper. You get what I'm saying? Now I gotta get deeper and tell the truth. Like, yeah, I did do this. Yeah, I did do that. You know what I mean? So that's why when we clean in house, if you clean in your house physically, right, and you doing it by yourself, you probably gonna do a decent job. But if you bring in another eye to look around the house while you cleaning it, that person is gonna hit some spots that you couldn't hit, that you probably didn't see. And that's why is when you're doing this process, it's good to have another person in there with you, because they're gonna, like when I did mine, what my sponsor did, what was good, he allowed me to see the other people's side of the stories. That's helped me forgive a lot of people too. And it took away the personal sting. When he looked at all of those situations and he was able to tell me that, yo, the police was just trying to do their job. When he was able to tell me that the superintendent of the schools that I was mad at, she was just trying to protect the children. When he was able to, when he told me that Janelle family just wanted somebody to blame. So when you hearing that from the other people perspective, it takes the personal sting away from you. And then you could, that's why it's important to have another person with you when you're doing this process, because you might not get those feelings out. You know what I mean? What you got on that, John?
Well, I'll go back to all the steps up until now, right? You have to have an open mind. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't have an open mind, then you're not going to reach sobriety. You know what I mean? And part of having an open mind and is accepting criticism. You know what I mean? Accepting somebody else's perspective on, you know, what's going on with your situation, and just listening to somebody who's been through the same situation that you've been in. You know what I'm saying? But if you harden your heart, sometimes it's difficult, you know, to even have confessions or talk to somebody else. You know what I mean? So like I said, it goes back to one, like before we do any podcast, we pray. So we open up that avenue for the Holy Spirit to come in. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, if I'm not doing that and I have a hardened heart, it's like, how can I accept, you know, what somebody's trying to tell me after I told them what's going on in my life? You know what I mean? Like, you know, I always tell people like this, we breathe life into the situation on how we respond to it. You know what I mean? Like I told you the other day, I called you or I texted you that night and I was like, yo, I was so mad at myself because I responded to the situation. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, and the first thing my wife was like, did you pray about it? And I was like, nah, I ain't pray about it. I just reacted.
You know why we doing that pride set in. You know how it is that pride set in. We can give people that advice, but we got to be on our toes when that joint land on our lap.
That's it.
Yeah.
You know, but humility always set in when you got to correct your own self and go back and say, you know what, my bad.
Facts.
I'm apologizing for it. You know.
Facts. Yeah, so, when that step 10 kick in, when you got to go in and make that apology real quick. Yeah. Says, our next problem will be to discover the person whom we are to confide. Here we ought to take much care, remembering that prudence is a virtue which carries a high rating. Perhaps we shall need to share with this person facts about ourselves which no others ought to know. We shall want to speak with someone who is experienced, who not only have stayed dry, but have been able to surmount other serious difficulties perhaps like our own. This person may turn out to be one sponsor, but not necessarily so. If we have developed a high confidence in him and his temperament and problems are close of his own, then such a choice will be good. Besides, your sponsor already has the advantage of knowing something about your case. Perhaps, though, your relation to him is such that you would care to reveal only a part of your story. If this is the situation, by all means do so. But you ought to make beginning as soon as you can. If you may turn out, however, that you choose a someone else for the most difficult and deeper revelations. This individual may be entirely outside of AA. For example, a clergyman or a doctor for some of us, or a complete stranger may prove the best. The thing for me was the first time I was desperate in rehab when I did it. So the Most High blessed me with a decent dude that shared a lot of his stuff with me, that made me more comfortable with him. The second time I handpicked the sponsor that I got now, and I saw him. I studied him for a while, like at different meetings, saw how he was moving, and that helped me out. But on the other one, I had a friend that I was sponsoring that had soon passed away, and I was kind of reluctant because I wanted him to achieve at this, but I didn't think he was gonna open up with everything to me because of our relationship. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's the sticky part. If you have a real close friend in this, or a relative, with you sponsoring them, in my opinion, because I don't know if he's gonna disclose everything to me because of our relationship. It might be something that he might feel too embarrassing because that we've been friends for so long. You know what I mean? Some stuff that he might tuck under. But it says you could use me for some and use somebody else for some other stuff. Like I had people that I told them, if it's crimes or stuff like that, I don't want to hear about it. Go talk to an attorney, or because you could talk to a lawyer and do it. You could talk to a doctor with doctor patient's privilege, stuff like that. So it's other ways you could get it out besides telling it to somebody that you think it might, like you might incriminate yourself. So and things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? What you got on that?
I mean, we almost do a step 5 every time we come on here. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, let's be real. You know what I'm saying? Like,
facts.
The for me, my step 5, was probably going to my pastor. You know what I mean? Like the most at that time. You know what I'm saying? Like my spiritual advisor, and then always realizing that pastors are human beings themselves. You know what I mean? So like, I had a pastor that was real with me. You know what I'm saying? Like it was just like, yo, I want you to live the right way, and right now you're not living right. You know what I'm saying? How I responded was definitely like, from a place of, okay, I accept what you're trying to give me. You know what I'm saying? So like, even when being a sponsor or confiding into a sponsor, something happened with the recording.
Nah, we good.
Okay.
No, we still on.
You gotta be humble, number one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I tell people like this: the most important thing about being a sponsor or even trying to remain sober is time. You know what I mean? Like what you do with your time and how you manage time is the difference in you staying sober in anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then like you said, you got to realize if somebody's going to take the time to listen to you confess whatever you're going to confess, then you need to confess wholeheartedly. You know what I mean? Like,
deep.
You don't have to be
That's
like,
deep.
oh man, I'm too. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
That's deep.
That's what I got for that.
That's deep. The real test of the situation is your own willingness to confide in your full confidence in one with whom you share your first accurate self-survey. Even when you've found the person, it frequently takes great resolution to approach him or her. No one ought to say AA program requires no willpower. Here's one place you may require all you got. Happily, though, the chances are that you will be in for a very pleasant surprise. When your mission is carefully explained and is seen by the recipient of your confidence how helpful can how helpful he can really be. The conversation will start easily and will soon become eager. Before long, your listener may well tell a story or two about himself. That definitely happened with me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which will place you as more at ease. Provided you hold back nothing, your sense of relief will mount from minute to minute. The dammed up emotions of years break out of their confinement and miraculously vanish as soon as they are exposed. As the pain subsides, a healing tranquility takes its place. And when humility and serenity are combined, something else of a great moment is apt to occur. Many an AA, once agnostic and atheist, tell us that during this stage of step 5 is when they actually felt the presence of God. And even those who had faith already often becomes conscious of God as they never were before. The feeling of being one with God and man, this is emerging from isolation through the open and honest sharing of our terrible burden of guilt brings us to the resting place where we may prepare ourselves for the following steps toward full and meaningful sobriety. Bro, I would never forget, bro, after talking to him, bro, and he said, telling him everything, I felt so low, bro. And he said, we gotta pray for God to forgive you, for God to make you a better person, and for God to give you strength to forgive yourself, man. And we prayed, and I went back to my dorm, bro. And I was walking, and that warm sensation went through my body, bro. And that voice said, all you have to do is serve me, and you never have to worry about nothing else, bro. And my life changed. And you know what's deep? It happened to me before I even read it in this book. I had never read it before that was gonna happen to me. So then once it happened to me later on, I read it like a couple weeks later, and I was like, yeah, it was real. Because I knew what had happened.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because the experience I had was so like, oh, it was so like life changing, bro. It was like, wow, all that stuff I was searching for all them years, that feeling that I thought I was gonna get from the women, the money, the alcohol, the parties, all that, it came in that moment, and it was like, whoa. And then when I read it in the book, I knew what had happened, man.
That's
I just had
crazy.
the feeling of I just wanted to serve God. I had like nothing else mattered in the world to me. I just had to do it. You know what I'm saying? But so when they talk about it in that book, it was, and that's what I was talking about when I first went to the church I used to go to. I was like, I hear what y'all saying, but these steps on 12, it says, after having a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, I said, it guarantees you that you're gonna have one if you do this properly.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Nothing else ever guaranteed me that. You know what I'm saying? What you got on that part,
I'm
bro?
thinking on the flip side of that, you know what I mean? Because growing up in the church, you always hear, "Well, the Lord orders your steps." You know what I mean? Like, I was like, well, if He ordered my step, why He have me out in the streets wilding like that? You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? But like you said, once you have that spiritual awakening and you feel the Holy Spirit for the first time,
Yeah.
it's
Oh
something
man.
that you'll never forget. You know what I mean? So
Facts.
like,
Facts,
you know,
bro.
we get the
Facts.
Holy Spirit. You know, like I said, I never forget. Like it was says you said something earlier, and I remember just prior to us not having spoken in a long time, and then we finally connected and we talked about our sobriety, and then like I was that dude that was like, yo man, I'm good, I don't have to go to no more meetings, though, like whatever, you know what I'm saying? And then like I said, you put that fire back into me, like, yo man, you still gotta go to meetings, blah blah blah, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, you know when I went
Somebody
to
else. Go ahead.
my first meeting, it was like, whoa, now I know why you say you got to go to that meeting, because one, the Holy Spirit used me to talk to somebody who was going through something, and that
Facts.
gave them, that motivation to be like, well, shoot, if he did it, then I could do it.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? And like I
Exactly.
said,
It's not
that would have never happened if I was still home sitting on the couch just enjoying
facts.
my sobriety. You know what I'm saying?
Facts. And the reason I go is I find out what happens to people that don't go to meetings. See,
Yeah.
The reason I say that is most every meeting I go to, somebody gonna raise their hand when they say, "Is anybody coming back?" And somebody gonna say, "I had 25 years, or I had 10 years, or I had 15 years, and now I got 3 days."
Yeah.
And guess what they're gonna say? They're gonna say, "I stopped going to meetings. I thought I had it," and
Oh yeah.
that's why I go, because I need to hear that to remind me that I only got today, bro.
100%.
Only got today. So next week we on step 6, brother. Our prayers out. Father Abba, thank you for allowing us to come here today, Father. If it's your will, have this message touch somebody out there to bring them closer to you, Father, and make them seek sobriety, Father. Or if they have a family member, to have them reach out to us, Father, so we could guide them in ways that can help. All these blessings we ask in your Son, Christ's name we pray. Amen. As always, bro, enjoy your night. Tell the wife I said, what's up,
Oh
man,
wait,
and thanks for allowing me to have you for an hour.
we both trying to get through this pollen right now, man. She going through it. I'm going through it. I
Yeah,
done took some like
take
night
some
12. She done
Sudafed.
took some stuff, man. I'm like, you know what I'm saying? That's why I was like, what time tonight, man? When you said 7, I had just took it. I was like, oh man.
You got through it, brother. You got through it.
All right,
So
man.
I'm about to jump out and get something to eat now. I'll holler at you later, brother. Shalom.
All right, bet.
All right, no doubt. Great podcast again. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll holler at you guys next week. Shalom.